I'm joined now by Tyson Barker from the Atlantic Council, a non-partisan group that examines political, economic and security issues. Good to have you with us, Tyson. I want to start with the basics if we can. Can President Trump attack Iran without the approval of Congress?
Well, Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution gives the power to declare war actually to Congress. But after the passage of the War Powers Resolution in 1973, the president can, and presidents have, initiated limited military action without congressional approval as long as it's notified within 48 hours. And that they seek approval within 60 days for sustained action. So that's where we had in the past during the War on Terror, which, of course, the interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan were not based on declarations of war from Congress, but the provision within 60 days of authorization of use of military force. So the answer is yes.
Right. So what's behind Trump's hesitation then? Is it more about the divisions in his MAGA movement, much of his bases urging him not to get involved in a new war? Or is he still genuinely hoping Iran will stop fighting back?
I think, of course, it's interesting to watch the divisions within the Republican Party between the kind of liberal internationalists and the MAGA isolationists. But ultimately, the real tension here is within Trump himself. I think he has really consolidated control over the party. The MAGA movement will respond to his leadership. Of course, they're trying to socialize that he should remain rooted in his isolationist inclinations. And, you know, President Trump is in many ways a product of the war on terror and those interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan. And because of that, he knows the dangers associated with it. He's very risk averse when it comes to military intervention generally.
Yeah, deeper into the mind of Trump we go, I guess. Iran has vowed strong retaliation if the US joins Israel's military campaign. Is that threat a genuine factor in Donald Trump's hesitation?
I think, war is always unpredictable, and we've seen in the history of the 21st century that the outcomes cannot be predetermined, and U.S. intervention, be it in Libya, be it in Iraq, or be it lacking in Syria, can lead to unpredictable outcomes in the Middle East in particular. I think that if there were something to happen, he might lean on, some of the traditions that have had extremely limited military objectives, like the first Gulf War, where the United States was only focused on getting Iraq out of Kuwait rather than regime change. But again, he has given himself a 2-week window to make a decision, a determination. I think that's what we're going to live with.
So Europe was eventually involved in Iraq. Has Europe settled on its position now? Does Europe have a united position on what should be done or what should happen next year?
I think that their primary objective at this point, as we're seeing in Geneva and with UK Foreign Minister Lamy in Washington, is just to be a constructive actor and to try to provide space for potential de-escalation. It's less of a question of, is Europe united? It's a question of, does Europe have leverage to impact any decisions that the United States or Iran, for that matter, make?
Tyson Barker, non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Berlin. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's get some legal perspective with Dr. Alexander Gilder, Associate Professor of International Law and Security at the University of Reading. Good to see you. When can a US president use military force overseas? Does Iran represent one of these occasions?
The issue here for the US is there a distinction between a use of force against, say, terrorist targets, which the US president does not need authorization from Congress, or is it a declaration of war, which only Congress can give? And ultimately, if Congress disagrees with a presidential use of force, then at their disposal is limiting funding. And they can show that they are unhappy with the president's use of force by limiting funds to the military, which would obviously damage the US capabilities.
Since Iran did not attack Israel first, is it lawful then for Israel to strike Tehran preemptively?
Yeah, the issue here is a thorny issue, a long one in international law. Ultimately, it comes down to this imminence aspect of, was an attack from Iran imminent against Israel? Israel say that there has been declarations from Iran that they want to destroy Israel, and that nuclear capability makes that threat imminent. But the issue is whether or not troops were, for example, preparing for invasion. That might be imminent. Were planes about to take off to go and attack Israel? That would be imminence as well. In the past, there have been instances where the international community, including the US and the UK, have said that something is not imminent, particularly where Israel in the 1980s attacked the Iraq Osirak reactor. And Iraq did not, at the time, have nuclear weapons, did not have those capabilities. And the international community, including Israel's allies, denounced that strike, saying that that was too far removed from imminence. The US intelligence services have said that Iran is potentially 3 years away from having nuclear weapons, and that, to me, is not imminent.
That attack you referenced there was widely condemned, including by the UN, the US and the UK. Does the international community have any tools today to prevent a US attack on Iran?
The issue here is the veto in the Security Council. The Security Council could pass a resolution denouncing Israeli use of force. That, in the current political climate, is unlikely. Israel's allies would likely prevent that kind of resolution from passing. So international law often looks like a bit of a damp squid here, in that it's not able to enforce itself on states like Israel, where allies in the Security Council are preventing that kind of enforcement action.
Leading me to my final question, does international law mean as much as it used to today's world leaders?
I think it does, and I think it will still temper their appetite for action. I think that states are still concerned about what the rest of the international community thinks of them as an international law follower or an international law breaker. And that will forge alliances going forward. That will affect international trade. That affects how that state is able to function internationally if it's not trusted as a state that follows international law and keeps to its agreements.
Dr. Alexander Gilder, Associate Professor of International Law and Security at the University of Reading. Thank you.